Hello everyone. There comes a moment when losing weight stops being about appearance and starts being about how you feel in your own skin. It's that moment when you avoid certain clothes, hesitate before photos, or promise yourself again that this time will be different. Not because you lack motivation, but because deep down, you're tired of plans that demand too much and deliver too little. The truth is, most people don't fail diets. Diets fail people. They complicate what should be simple. They make you fight your hunger, your routine, and your patience all at once. And eventually exhaustion wins. But what if the answer isn't eating less? What if it's eating at the right time? The 18x6 intermittent fasting approach works not by forcing your body, but by aligning with it. When you allow your body a proper fasting window, something powerful happens. Insulin levels stabilize, stored fat becomes available for energy, and the system that once felt stuck begins to move again. It's not dramatic, it's not extreme, it's controlled, intentional, and surprisingly natural. Because real transformation rarely begins with a perfect meal plan. It begins with a shift in rhythm, a decision to stop rushing results and start building discipline. And today, this moment, might be where that shift finally starts for you. The struggle with weight is rarely just about numbers on a scale. It's about the quiet moments no one else sees. It's the hesitation before stepping onto the scale in the morning, already fearing what it might say. It's the way confidence slowly erodes, when clothes stop fitting the way they used to, or when you start choosing comfort over style just to avoid disappointment. Over time, the issue stops being physical and becomes deeply emotional. Many people carry a hidden weight far heavier than body fat, the weight of repeated attempts, broken promises to themselves, and the frustration of trying hard without seeing results. Each failed diet chips away at belief. Each temporary success followed by a regain creates a cycle of hope and discouragement. And eventually, a dangerous thought begins to form. Maybe this is just how I am. That thought is where the real damage happens. Because when someone stops believing change is possible, they stop trying in meaningful ways. They may still search for solutions, still watch videos, still read about diets, but deep inside there's doubt. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet skepticism that whispers, "Nothing works for me." This emotional burden affects more than appearance. It influences energy levels, social confidence, and even how people see their future. It changes how someone walks into a room, how they show up in conversations, and how they imagine themselves months or years from now. The longer this feeling stays, the more it convinces a person that transformation belongs to others, not to them. But the truth is, the problem has never been a lack of willpower or discipline. The real issue is that most people have been fighting their body instead of understanding it. And once someone realizes that change doesn't require suffering, only the right approach, something powerful begins to shift. Because the moment a person starts believing again, not in miracles, but in a method that makes sense, that's when the journey truly begins. Most diets don't fail because people are weak. They fail because they are built on restriction instead of understanding. From the beginning, many weight loss plans demand a level of perfection that simply doesn't fit real life. They ask you to cut out your favorite foods, measure every portion, ignore hunger, and follow rules so strict that even one bad day feels like the whole plan is ruined. At first, motivation carries you forward. The excitement of starting something new makes it easier to say no, to stay disciplined, to push through cravings. But motivation is temporary by nature. Life interrupts. Work gets busy. Stress builds. Social events happen. And the moment routine breaks, the diet starts to feel less like a solution and more like a burden. This is where frustration begins. Because when a diet depends entirely on constant willpower, it turns weight loss into a daily battle. You're not just living your life, you're negotiating with food, fighting hunger, and feeling guilty whenever you slip. Over time, this mental pressure becomes exhausting. And once exhaustion sets in, consistency disappears. Another reason diets fail is that they focus only on calories, ignoring how the body actually works. They assume that if you simply eat less, results will follow. But the body isn't a calculator. It's a system driven by hormones, energy balance, sleep, stress, and timing. When those factors aren't considered, weight loss slows, plateaus appear, and people blame themselves instead of the flawed method they were given. The most damaging part is what happens emotionally after a failed diet. Instead of thinking, this plan didn't suit me, many people conclude, I don't have discipline. That belief sticks. It makes the next attempt feel heavier before it even begins. Confidence drops, expectations shrink, and weight loss starts to feel like something reserved for other people. But real, sustainable change doesn't come from punishing routines. It comes from strategies that respect how life works and how the body responds. When a plan reduces the need for constant decision making, supports natural hunger rhythms, and fits into everyday life, consistency stops feeling like effort and starts becoming habit. For years, people have been told that weight loss is all about cutting things out: fewer meals, fewer calories, fewer pleasures. The message has always sounded the same: eat less, avoid more, and rely on willpower to fill the gap. But what if the real breakthrough isn't about restriction at all? What if it's about timing? When you shift focus from what you eat to when you eat, something changes psychologically and physically. Psychologically, the process feels simpler. Instead of tracking every bite or feeling guilty for enjoying food, you operate within a clear window. You're not constantly deciding whether you should eat. You already know when eating fits. That clarity removes the endless mental negotiation that drains so many people on traditional diets. Physically, timing creates structure the body understands. The human system is designed to move between periods of feeding and fasting. In the modern world, however, many people eat from morning until late night, never allowing the body to fully tap into stored energy. When eating is continuous, insulin remains elevated and fat burning stays limited. But when you introduce a consistent fasting window, the body begins to adapt. Energy regulation improves. Hunger signals become more predictable. And instead of feeling deprived, many people notice they feel lighter, more focused, and more in control. Timing also restores a sense of rhythm to daily life. Meals stop being impulsive and start becoming intentional. Instead of reacting to every craving or emotion, you follow a pattern that supports your goals. That rhythm builds discipline naturally, not through force but through repetition. Over time, it becomes less about following a rule and more about living in a way that feels steady and manageable. This shift from restriction to rhythm is powerful because it changes how people experience weight loss. It stops being a punishment and starts becoming a structure. And when a method feels structured instead of suffocating, it becomes something you can continue, not just for weeks, but for the long run. When people hear about fat loss, they often imagine it as something forced: endless workouts, strict diets, constant hunger. It feels like a battle where success depends on how much discomfort you can tolerate. But the body doesn't work best under constant pressure. In fact, some of the most effective changes happen when you stop forcing it and start working with its natural biology. The 18x6 fasting rhythm is powerful because it taps into systems that already exist inside you. During the eating window, Your body receives the fuel it needs to function, repair, and maintain energy. But during the fasting window, something different begins to happen. Insulin levels gradually drop, signaling the body that it's time to look beyond recent meals for energy. When this happens consistently, the body becomes more willing to access stored fat, not because it's being punished, but because it's being guided. This process isn't loud or dramatic. You won't feel fat burning in the moment. Instead, it's subtle and steady. Your hunger patterns begin to stabilize. Energy levels become more even throughout the day. Many people notice that the intense cravings they once battled start to soften, replaced by a more predictable sense of appetite. This is the body adjusting to a rhythm it understands. Another important shift happens at the hormonal level. Fasting windows can help improve insulin sensitivity and support the balance of hormones linked to fat storage and hunger signals. When these systems function more efficiently, weight loss stops feeling like a constant uphill climb. Instead of pushing harder for smaller results, the body begins to cooperate with the process. What makes this approach different from extreme dieting is that it doesn't rely on shock or deprivation. It relies on consistency. The magic isn't in one perfect day, but in repeating the rhythm long enough for the body to trust it. And once that trust builds, fat loss becomes less about effort and more about alignment, a steady response to a pattern your body was designed to follow. The hardest part of any transformation isn't the method. It's the moment you decide to truly begin. Not the excited, emotional start that lasts a few days, but the quiet, firm decision that this time will be different because you will be different. That decision doesn't need drama. It needs honesty. Many people wait for the perfect time to start. They tell themselves they'll begin on Monday, after a holiday, after work gets less stressful, after life feels more organized. But perfection rarely arrives, and the longer you wait, the heavier the starting line feels. The truth is, progress never begins when conditions are ideal. It begins when commitment becomes stronger than hesitation. Choosing to follow structured rhythm, like 1836 fasting, isn't about chasing instant results. It's about proving to yourself that you can keep a promise. The first few days may feel unfamiliar. You may notice your mind questioning the change, your habits trying to pull you back into old routines. That's normal. Every meaningful shift feels uncomfortable before it feels natural. What matters is not intensity, but consistency. One controlled day builds confidence. A few consistent days build belief. A few consistent weeks begin to build identity. And once you start seeing yourself as someone who follows through, someone who respects their own goals, the process stops being a temporary effort and becomes part of who you are. Real transformation is rarely loud in the beginning. It's quiet. It's choosing the plan even when no one is watching. It's staying steady when results are still catching up. And it's trusting that small, repeated actions are shaping a future version of you that feels stronger, lighter, and more confident. So the invitation isn't to start perfectly. It's to start sincerely. Because the moment you stop waiting and start committing, the journey is no longer something you're thinking about. It's something you're living. As we come to the end of this conversation, remember this: weight loss is never just about food, and it's never just about speed. It's about direction. For many people, the real struggle hasn't been a lack of effort. It's been a lack of a method that fits real life. The 18-6 approach is not a shortcut, and it's not a miracle. It's simply a structure that helps you work with your body instead of against it. You don't need to be perfect starting tomorrow. You just need to be consistent enough to prove to yourself that change is possible. Because once your actions begin to match your intentions, confidence returns, energy returns, control returns. And when that happens, results stop feeling distant and start feeling inevitable. So don't think of this as the end of a speech. Think of it as the beginning of a decision. A decision to be patient, to stay disciplined, and to trust the process long enough to let it work. Your transformation won't come from one dramatic day. It will come from many steady ones. And the best part is, your first steady step can begin now.